Hello and welcome to another one of our reviews. Today we're doing quite the special one. In this one we are going to be reviewing a TV serial written by Russell T Davies. We did one of these for the Advent calendar where we did years and years, and we have decided to go ahead and review his next one called It's a Sin, which is covering the AIDS crisis that was in the 1980s. And so I guess you could say almost like years and years was looking to the future. This was a look into the past. So I quite like that. Yep. Also, Russell T Davies has a lot of experience writing about the gay community, the LGBT community. He has done so many times before. Partly the reason why is because he himself is a gay man, but also he's just a fucking great writer. But in this, he has decided to tackle something that is very personal to him because he was alive during this time. He had friends that died during this time. So I went into this with much hype because as you all know, me and Callum are big fans of Russell T Davies. In fact, he's one of my favourite writers of all time. So I was excited, also nervous. You never know where he's going to fuck it up. Like, you just never know. It could happen. Yeah. It does happen to everyone. But yeah, it could happen. But I was excited considering that how amazing Years and Years was, how amazing his Doctor Who is, how great bits of other things I've seen him do is. I had a lot of excitement. I always have excitement for his work because he's a very special writer. So, yeah, It's a Sin. I suppose I should ask the magic question. Is It's a Sin actually good? And the answer is... the answer is... Jesus Christ, he's fucking done it again. Hasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. Really good stuff. It's really good stuff.
It's a Sin, like most of his work, is brilliant TV.
Yeah. It's fun. It's emotional. It gets you invested. And here's the thing with It's a Sin. Because it's in the past, and it's mainly to do with, obviously, the AIDS crisis, there isn't a... It's very different from his other work in terms of Years and Years in Doctor Who. I'm not sure what Queer's Focus is like, because I haven't seen it. But for me, it's this very different RTD storytelling, because it's more character experiencing something over a long period of time. They're not driving it. Well, in a sense they are, but it's something that they are experiencing, and it's like...
It's also
more to do with us being on this journey with these sets of characters.
In some senses, it's almost a bit of a historical drama, because the plot is already laid out by history. He's just integrated it with these characters. And as always, with Russell T Davies, the characters are fucking amazing. Every single one of them. I don't know how this man manages to do it, but I know his writing process. I know I've heard him in interviews before tell us about how a lot of people write a plot, and then they have characters in the plot, and then they have, right, how do I get these characters to this point in the plot? I know that Zack Snyder does this, where he thinks of like a bunch of cool moments he wants in the film, and then he thinks, how am I going to get from this point to that point with these characters? And it turns out it's just this sort of weird zigzaggy thing that often is really contrived and stupid. Whereas with what Russell T Davies does, is he writes these sort of biographies of characters that come up in his head. And then the story comes from these characters, and he just thinks, right, well, what's going to happen next? What would this character do? What would this character do? And the story kind of just happens from there. And that way, it means that the plot kind of happens because of what the characters decide to do, which I think is a fucking genius way of writing stories, and it shows, because Russell T Davies is a brilliant writer, and almost all of the characters he writes in everything he does are amazing, and especially including this. Like, all of these characters, and to not only that, but the fact that they are all, like, quite young as well, like, quite young actors. They were so three-dimensional, in-depth, passionate, nuanced, everything. They were incredible. I was invested in pretty much every single one of them. Maybe some of the side characters that didn't get enough screen time was a little bit less. But that core cast that were all living in that one house, brilliant. All brilliant characters. It also has great plot twists. Some of them are like ones that you can see coming, you just don't want them to happen, and they hit hard when they do. Other ones can come completely out of nowhere, but they're so well set up and red herringed and seeded. And it's dark, it's fucking brutal, and it hits even harder when you realize that this is a real thing that was happening to people in the 80s. Like this isn't fucking made up. This is real. This is a real story. Like, obviously not, this is based off what happened, but what I mean is that this sort of thing that happens in this story was happening to thousands of people across the world in the 1980s, and Russell Davies has translated that into a drama. The performances are great, the characters are great, the story's great. It's just fucking phenomenal from top to bottom. There's very, 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 very little in the way of criticisms I have. They are minor gripes, but like, I mean, you know, what can you do? Like, it's very hard to be perfect. But Jesus Christ, I loved this. I loved It's a Sin. It was great from start to finish, just like Years and Years. This man can do no wrong. He is one of the best writers of all time. Would you agree?
I would totally agree. So I've watched it literally yesterday. Watched it in one whole sitting for the second time, and I think I preferred my first viewing, but this second viewing was still really good. Like, and I think there's two episodes in particular which we'll get into that really got to me. That really set me off. It's just, I think what I tweeted this literally after I rewatched it hours ago. What is it with Russell T Davies making me cry every single fucking time? What is this? Why does this man want me to cry every time anything he ever writes happens? Just like, I don't get it. I don't know why he wants to pain me like this. God, it's just so, I care about pretty much all these characters a lot, and it's just nice to have characters that just cause and effect. It all works. It all,
and also, just like Years and Years, because it takes place over multiple time periods, the pacing is excellent because it only shows you the bits you need to see. It doesn't have any of the shitty filler. It's really, really good.
Every scene, because this takes place over 10 years. It takes place from the very start. They start there, I guess college / uni, whatever, to when they become, especially Richie, becoming an actual proper actor, actually going on the West End. Like, right, I think it was episode 5 where we see him on the West End.
At the very start.
And it shows him that's the highest he ever risen in his acting career. And it's like, to start off the finale with that, and then for the rest of the episode to pretty much just depress you, but in the most logical way, is just so satisfying to watch. It's just the biggest thing for me as well is the acting, especially in episode 5 and 3.
Oh my god.
Boy, it's good.
Honestly.
Boy, it's so good.
So I think there's two things in terms of acting that I will touch on. Obviously, we'll get into the characters when we dive right in. But in terms of acting, the two things I really wanted to point out were, firstly, the characters that got AIDS were all so well acted. Especially the guy who plays Colin. Like, the way his eyes dart around, it honestly,
Jesus Christ.
it's horrifying to watch. And it's so real, it's guttural, like, it just rips you apart, man. It's so dark and honest. It's honest and bleak, and it gives you, what it does is it doesn't sugarcoat the situation. This story gives you the real life situation of what happens when you get AIDS. It's fucked, man. It is fucked. That virus is one of the worst things I've ever seen. Ever. That is miserable existence. And it's so sad. and the acting portrayed it absolutely perfectly. And also, I want to give a specific shout out to the costume and makeup. The way that they dressed those faces to look like they were dying was...
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
It was horrifying to watch, but it was exactly what it needed to be. It was honest, it was real, it was guttural, and it was amazing. And the other performance I wanted to point out was, I can't remember the actress's name, but the woman who plays the mother of Richie in episode 5. That is one of the best performances I've ever seen on a TV show. That was unbelievable. And not to forget the twist as well. The fact that the whole time we were expecting the father to be the bad parent. But
Kelly Hawes is
Keely Hawes. Her performance in episode 5 was, she completely stole the show. She was so good.
Phenomenal.
Absolutely. Every second she spent, even in the first 4 episodes, as like the dainty mother, and also her cunningness and her like dark side was actually teased in the first 4 episodes as well. You had to really pay attention to it, but you could tell that there was just something not right about her kindness to her son, and it was so odd how such a nice woman, and you could just tell that Richie wanted to tell her about his problems, but he knew he can't because he knows the real her, and we don't know the real her. But you could just tell something was off, and it was so unsettling and bothering, and I was like, what the fuck is going on with this woman? I can't tell what it is. And then as soon as she finds out he has AIDS in episode 5, and completely literally goes ballistic on that hospital.
Pretty much.
Oh my god, that performance was so unbelievable. It's...
Yeah.
Russell T Davies' writing just has this ability to bring out the best acting out of people.
Yeah, because it's crazily realistic, like almost to insane levels. Like that whole, one of the biggest highlights of the show is that obviously that scene in episode 5, and what they do. In terms, not just in terms of writing and acting, but the production of how it's shot. Oh. The amount of long takes they have. Oh, it was so fucking good. Because we get to walk through. That's what's so great about the long shots and like long takes. You get to walk through with this character as it slowly sinks in.
Yep.
As they have to deal with this very, very initial like reaction, and we have to sit through it, and it's uncomfortable and it's scary, but it's like as it builds and builds and builds, and how she reacts to everybody, how she talks to everybody, especially the scene of her hitting the dad because he's breaking down because the son he loves is dying, which is a brilliant sort of like twist of like what you would expect. The roles are pretty much reversed. It's so good, and it's eerily like just so, but also scarily realistic.
It's so nuanced as well. The way that, despite the awful thing she's doing, the way she's reacting to this scenario that's so awkward and painful and disgusting to watch, you can completely understand why she feels this way.
You understand why it should, and she admits it herself. Doesn't make what she did any less wrong. The way she went about it was bad. In terms of how she reacted, in terms of what she actually did, taking Richie out of the hospital, while it wasn't the reason he died, morally, is taking Richie away from his friends that he's spent 10 years with, and having to live with this. And what he wanted was to die with his friends and family, and the fact that his mum took that away is heartbreaking, but it's so well done.
Yeah,
it's so well done.
Yeah, this is how you beat an audience member over the head in the right way, because it's completely self-aware that the scene is on a knife's edge, and then like you said with the long shots, because obviously, and also it's such a shock to the system, because the previous 4 episodes, time was passing fastly because it was constantly skipping around, showing you bits of their lives throughout the 10 years. But because you have to spend like a whole section of episode 5 painfully watching her walk awkwardly, silently through this corridor. With
It's a solid 10 minutes.
We're just
the whole section.
Dead cold, fucking hospital noise, and her just heels hitting the floor. It's horrifying to watch, but it's perfect. It's exactly what storytelling is all about. And when you get that, I think her name's Sandra, the woman who comes into that room to make herself tea, in that scene, just basically lays it down thick on her. That scene's amazing. Yeah. And obviously, we'll get to Jill Baxter's character as a whole, but that scene by the beachside where she says he died last night, and then Jill gives her that big speech about...
hits you. That hits you when she says that. Especially because literally the previous scene is him going, I want to see Jill, I want to see my friends. And then literally we cut to the scene of her just late. Oh, Jesus Christ.
And then Jill...
And the use of the silence as well.
Use of the silence, and then also that big speech she gives to Valerie, that Jill gives, about how it's all her fault. 100% earned. Completely makes sense. Crazy how it was earned that we didn't even know of this about Valerie until this episode. But all the pieces just suddenly fit together at the same time during that scene. And it made such a brilliant point about the whole story. Like, I love how they used Jill in that. The fact that she was this point of view character. The way that she was the glue that stuck all these people together. And how she had to watch her friends die. And she'd figured this all out by seeing people being horrible. And this was set up earlier with Gloria's parents as well. She understood that it's their fault. It is their fault that this happened. It was incredible. And my fucking God, what a great show. I mean, I could just end it there, but I'm not going to.
No.
But I couldn't not talk about that first, because it is the most ripping thing from this story, is that one thing, that one element, that one massive twist leading into that scene in the hospital, and then that bit at the end with Richie's death and Jill's scene with Valerie. Oh my God. It is literally a perfect climax to this 5-episode arc. It was so good. It was just painful, but good painful. Yeah. So anyway, let's dial that back a bit. Let's get into the characters, eh?
Yep.
Let's talk about Richie Tozer. You go ahead.
Richie is such an interesting character, and I think, and they do sum it up really well, and you get it throughout the show of like shame, and that's a big thing I think they tried to put through his character, is the shame he feels. Yeah, he goes ahead with everything he does, and he knows it, and he knows what he's doing as well, but he feels like he deserves it. What happens to him is what he feels he deserves. Is really, really, really well done. The acting is just brilliant from the actor. Does a fantastic job. I enjoy all of his interactions with pretty much every character, because I think he has really good chemistry with everybody. In a show about like casual sex as well, I think like, yeah, for his character as well, he's quite a chemistry filled character, you know. Just a lot of the interactions he has with a lot of the characters, especially obviously Jill and him, I think are, because they put it a lot with, especially with the parents, how Jill keeps saying that they're not in a relationship, Richie keeps saying they're not in a relationship, that they just keep knocking at it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
I just wanted to add before I forget, I love the symbolicness of the scene in episode 1 where he's on the boat and he throws the condoms into the water.
Yeah.
It foreshadows the whole story. It foreshadows his death, basically. Because it's just
throwing away safety.
Throwing away safety. If you had worn those, you would still be alive.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed that when I rewatched it. I was like, oh, okay.
You know what's crazy? I know, because I've only seen It's a Sin once. As soon as I saw that scene, I'm like, he's going to die. I knew it straight away. I was like, yep, he's throwing that off the bat. He is going to die. And I was right. And even though I predicted that, when Valerie said that he was dead, I was still shocked. Yeah. I was still shocked.
Because of how the scene was structured and how you just see him alive. You think this happens right after, the way the scene is setting up, and then it hits you with that. And just the silence is perfectly done. Just great. It's just great stuff. It really is. One of my, I think the highlights with Richie, I think it's episode 4. I'm not sure. It's when he goes back to the Isle of Wight and he meets up with, I can't remember the lad's name.
Yeah, the guy he fancied at school.
I think it's Mac. No, it's not Maxwell. It's someone else. But it's that whole scene of like the whole section of the story, and with it really well done, really well put together, and then the ending of like him. He could have been anything, and he's right. And the whole scene of the ballet, because he referenced it earlier, of him. That's what he wants. That's what he wanted to be in. And I really like the character as well. Like that, obviously he met up with. He was just like, it's not. What I feared when I first watched it was that it was going to be someone who, soon as he like revealed he was gay, was like, what the fuck? He's what? It's something like that. But I'm glad Russell didn't do that. It made it way more impactful, I think, when we had the scene with the ballet. I love that scene. I think the music in that scene is fantastic, and it reminds me a lot of like it's not the same like symbolically, but it reminds me of Joker in the scene when the Joker dances. Yeah, because it's them showing who they are. I really enjoyed when they did it in It's a Sin. I think that scene is great. I love how, despite the fact that they had all that tense arguing before. Yeah. When the guy sat in the car and saw him dancing in those headlights, he smiled and everything just clicked for him. Mm-hmm. It all just made sense. Mm-hmm. And I think that in itself is such a Russell scene, because it's like they have just had like a really, really intense, quite nasty scene on the beach. But then for him to look at him and be like, this is who we are as humans. You know, it kind of just, it shows the sort of accepting that humans are flawed. They have these impulses, motives, desires. And the fact that a disease could punish you for being human is inhumane in itself. I think that's the point it's making. And that's really the tragedy of it. And like you said, I agree, the dancing scene, that was such a lovely bit of... It was very artistic, and it's one of those scenes that rewards you for paying attention to the story. Because I think if someone was watching this very surface level, they might look at that scene and be like, that was a bit weird. But you have to actually invest yourself in this character and who he is to understand the meaning of that scene, I think. Another thing I loved about Richie is how the way the scenes are shot when he's living in a false reality. You have two examples of this. The first one is hilarious. It's the scene in episode 1 where he goes to the clubs and it shows many, 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 many nights of many, many, many guys. Yeah, yep.
And you have them playing that classical song, and I think maybe even Murray Gold added a little bit of his own charm to it. But it played this really epic old school symphony to him fucking all these different guys, and then it just escalated. Yeah. There were more guys and there were orgies, and it was just it was so funny.
It was bloody hilarious.
It was bloody hilarious. I loved it. And then the other one is in episode 2 when he does this big demonstration of why you shouldn't worry about AIDS, and it's just like, people tell me this, that, and it was like this big sort of song. It's like a big theatrical production
performance.
It almost reminded me a bit of one of the Genie's songs in Aladdin, actually. The way that he kept on listing all these different reasons why you shouldn't give a shit about AIDS and how it's a scam. But I think that having him do that and then him actually end up getting AIDS and seeing the reality of it, it kind of it takes away that veil, that fake sort of the thing, because he's an actor, and when he's doing a scene like that, he's playing a character to sort of just emphasize his thoughts on the situation in a theatrical way. But as soon as he gets the disease, reality really hits him, and that whole character gets stripped away from him, and he becomes a much more real person, I think. You know, and that sort of dream starts to fade. But I think the direction and the editing was absolutely phenomenal in the scenes where he was doing those demonstrations.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was very well done, and I bloody loved it. It was just
like this show it has mastered pacing. I think it has mastered how to decide what speed and how many cuts to have and what angles to have in scenes to elevate the storytelling that it's trying to do, whether it's, you know, really it's cutting through time and it's being all, you know, bouncy and theatrical and, you know, fun and vibrant, or it's just dragging you through the fucking scene as slow as possible to make you as painful as possible. Like the pacing in the show is just off the charts.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, Russell T Davies has always been great with pacing, I think, but I think he's just
he has.
With all the modern technology that's available at his disposal, I think he's just mastered it. He's so good. But yeah, like Richie Tozer is really the centerpiece of this. It's a bit like how Daniel Lyons was of Years and Years. He's kind of like the centerpiece of this show.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, for sure. I think the final scene, is that whole speech he gives, like the performance he gives right at the end, the last scene. And you get that last frame. It's just like, what a perfect way to end the show.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
Yeah, the sort of flashback of them all in the park together, and like the bird takes his ice cream. It's and then you also and the last shot is the back of him with his arms spread out. It's just fucking bow wrapped on that beautiful prison, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, Richie Tozer is amazing character, amazing actor. Oh, I completely forgot about episode 4 as well, when he comes and helps out with the police riots. Love that scene.
Yeah. That was good. That was good.
The one line he has in the whole show that I thought was maybe a little bit off is the ending of part 4 when he says, "I'm gonna live." I thought that was just a little bit overdramatic. Just a little bit, just a tad. It could have been toned down a bit.
I see what you mean.
Like I get on paper why they did it, because it's like it's subverting what you think he's going to say. Because you think he's going to come out as having AIDS to everyone.
But I think, no, they already, with that scene, because he said he was bleeding.
Yeah.
Without saying it, they already figured it out.
And then also the other ending of it is it's going to give you a false sense of hope, thinking that he's going to live when he actually doesn't. So that, in that regard, it works. I just think, I don't know, there's something about the execution of the line, it just feels a little bit overdramatic, but it's a very, very minor nitpick. And the scene itself serves a great purpose, so I don't mind. But I just think it's just a little bit overdone, just a tad.
I get that. I think there's a lot you could probably interpret with that line, because I think there's a lot of him saying he's going to live, like he's going to live his life for as long as he can, is the way you could probably interpret it. Because obviously the very next episode, the beginning, is his performance on, I can't remember what the play was called. They kept saying it, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But there's a lot. I get what you're saying. I get it can.
Oh,
be
you
a
know,
little bit
in terms of
overdramatic
the narrative as a whole, it's a great moment. But I'm just talking about just as an individual scene, the execution is just a tiny bit overdone. But it doesn't damage anything. It's just a little bit overdone. That's it. That's the only thing I have to say about that. But apart from that, I loved him coming in and also it's an example of a character who's been off screen for a while entering the scene, but it's actually earned. It actually makes sense why he's there. And it's a genuine surprise because he hasn't been on screen for a while.
He knows where it is. I think. Well, the thing is, he says that he like as he was heading back, he didn't know how he's going to get everybody in the same place to tell them. So I think I would say it's it's not a massive problem, but I think it is slightly contrived because I don't think they really established he knows fully on how it's organised and how it's going to go down. With Roscoe, for example, he does, because he's more around the people at the time. He understands what's going on. It's just he goes on his thing with Stephen Fry. So with Richie, I do think it is slightly contrived, but there's a little wiggle room you can have. But I don't think it doesn't damage the story.
Yeah, I suppose when you consider that he knew they were all going to be there, that's one thing. And also, what he did once he got there was a reaction to what he saw.
Yes.
So I think it gets away with it.
It's not a massive problem. It's not massive. Yeah. I'm not going to. It doesn't break the whole fucking plot.
Obviously not. Yeah.
It's just slightly. It's just slightly contrived.
Yeah. But, I think like the last like few minutes of episode 4 is like the only thing I can really think of, in the whole of It's a Sin. There could be other things too that I can't remember, but it was the only moment in the whole serial where I was a bit like, that wasn't as tight as I wanted.
I think the last like sort of like 10 minutes of episode 4 are like, this is good. There's just like for example with Roscoe, he like, I know it's a joke kind of thing and it's to make a point, but you know he pissed in the coffee, but then the asked like, oh, does Margaret Thatcher take tea or coffee? And he happened to get the right one. Like that again, that's a contrivance, but it's quite small and it's more.
To be fair, with that one it was 50-50, so it could have gone either way.
Yeah, no, exactly. But that's the chance.
I suppose what I would have done maybe to fix it is I would have just had him piss in both tea and the coffee.
Yeah, just have him say, what does she like? Does she like tea and coffee? He's like, oh, she likes coffee. So it's not a big fantasy. Well, that's good because I pissed in both.
Yeah.
That's what I would have. I think that's what I would have done because I think that it works on it works on both fronts. I think that, and it puts away the sort of contrivance of like, oh yeah, there's enough piss to put both.
I would have done something like the way I would have done. I would be like, I said, well, does she like tea or coffee? And he's like, oh, she likes coffee. And he's like, oh, it's alright, I pissed in it. He's like, what, the tea or the coffee? And he says both. That's how I would have done.
Something like that. Yeah.
Just in case. In case, and then struts off.
and then you can say like black man's piss, which is a fucking funny line.
Oh god, yeah. But yeah, I think just the last 5 or 10 minutes of episode 4, it's the only bit that doesn't compare to the rest, but it's still really good.
Yeah.
Just needs like,
it's still pretty good.
Just needs like a 99% fine tune, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. For sure.
Anyway, but yes, Richie Tozer, great character, brilliant actor as well. I thought he did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that his interactions with just everybody is just so good. You know, just also all great.
I love in the scenes where Valerie is yelling at him in the hospital, and then he just breaks down and says, "I don't want to die. I don't want to die." It's just, oh man, it's so heartbreaking. Oh, Russell T Davies he's just got this talent for tearing you apart. You're tearing me apart, Lisa. But yeah, Richie Tozer, absolutely brilliant. Near the start and near the end, he has a relationship with Ash, but he also has another relationship as well with another guy who ends up getting like a cancer lump on the bottom of his back. They had the scene of foreshadowing when they were trying to put the protection on and they just couldn't be asked with it. They're just, it's just too tedious. Again, presenting them with another opportunity to make a choice. I want to make this very firm and clear how great these characters are, because they make decisions in the story. That's right, Chris Chibnall. They make decisions in the story. And they chose not to because it was too tedious. And then
the character's name was Donald.
That's
who it was.
That's the one.
Donald. Yeah.
And so Richie looks at his back, and as soon as he sees it, he's like, "I'm gonna have AIDS."
Yep. Mm-hmm. It's the fear that sets in. straight away.
It's the beginning of the end, and that scene is so well directed. It's amazingly directed because the spot is on his back when it's not even in focus before that, and I noticed it first.
I noticed it before the focus on it. I noticed
the first time. I was just like, and
it
it was so brilliantly directed because I was just like, hang on a second, what is that on his back? And it took me a few seconds to realize what I was just like, hang on, isn't that like a cancer spot, or am I just like seeing something that's on the actor? Like, do they have like a birthmark? And then as soon as they have Richie look right at it and do a close-up, I was like, oh, fuck. And then I realized that not only does this guy have probably cancer and AIDS, I realized what the implications were of Richie having it, and it all just clicked together. Like, the direction in this show is just so good. It's amazing.
It really is.
But yeah, that part of the story was incredible as well. And
really was.
Also, I just want to comment, there's great comedy in this with Richie and all of his friends. I love the little gags they have, like the bit where they go la, like when they see each other.
Yeah.
This show has, because most of the characters in this are either a gay man or a straight woman, they are very flamboyant, and it has this very theatrical like charm to it. And I found that really refreshing, actually, because like I know that if it was any other writer that didn't do it as well, they might make it really like stereotyped and quite cringy. But because it was Russell T Davies, he understands like the complexities of gay culture, not just like the surface level flamboyance, but like all the different little intricacies that they have in the flamboyance that's added on top of their personalities. I really liked it, and I thought he made them such fun, interesting characters with little quips and quirks and funny little mannerisms that the actors would do, and I thought that was so good.
Yeah, I agree.
Like
I think it was really fun to watch.
The attention to detail that went into crafting these personalities was so good. I think, actually, because Richie was one of them, but I think this is a perfect segue into the character that I think best handles all those little mannerisms, is probably the most flamboyant character in the show, and that is Roscoe Babatunde.
Yeah.
Roscoe is just so much fun. I love Roscoe.
Yeah.
That scene in episode 1, because we get a very serious backstory for Roscoe and how he comes from a country that is brutal and kills people and considers gay a sin. Like, this is where the sort of "it's a sin" line comes from. Is that he comes from a very religious family that have an African background, and he knows it's like if he's ever sent back to Africa, he's gonna die. Like, he is going to die, and he has to flee out of there. But I love the scene where he dresses in drag and basically just tells his whole family to fuck themselves.
Fuck off. Yeah. Yeah, go. You can see me at London W, fuck.
And I love how, like, half of them are crying because he's committed sin, and the other half are laughing because he's being so fucking funny.
Well, one woman's just laughing her ass off because it's hilarious.
Because it's hilarious.
It's just one.
And then I think it may have been the auntie that was laughing because she's like, "That's so funny, Roscoe." And then the other ones are crying, especially I think his mother was crying because it's like, "No, he's going to hell. He's going to die."
Yeah. Yep.
I thought that scene was just...
boy.
I mean, look, there's going to be some people out there that think it's blasphemous, but I think that's kind of what the whole point of the scene is that he's saying that there's no point in me just suffering and being killed. I might as well be myself, and just fully dives head first and says, I am going to dress in drag because I want to. This is me, this is my identity, and I deserve the right to choose. And I'm going to leave here, live in a flat with my friends, and I'm not going to fucking give a shit about what you think. And I think that is great.
Really, you get to learn pretty much everything about him in that one scene.
Yeah. Roscoe is the life and soul of that household as well. Like, he brings so much charm and charisma to that whole house. And just, he's probably the funniest character in the show, I think. He's so fucking funny. And I just love his sass. I love his mannerisms. I think the actor does such a great job. The way that they portray the walk as well, like the really flamboyant strut, is so well done.
Yeah.
And also, fuck, Roscoe's a horny bastard.
He is. It really is.
But I think where it even shows even further is when shit gets serious. Because obviously you get the storyline where he sleeps with that guy in that house, and then it's revealed that it's actually the MP's house that's played by Stephen Fry.
Yeah, it's someone that the person actually works with, I guess.
And then obviously, Roscoe thinks that he's living the high life because that's what he wants. He wants to live the high life. But then realizes that, this MP is just this really narrow-sighted, sort of just quite, shitty person. And is basically using him as a token person of color to represent him. And it's really nasty. And I think Stephen Fry plays the role amazingly. I love Stephen Fry. He's so good.
Yeah.
He's hilarious. He's absolutely hilarious. But I really like the chemistry that Stephen Fry and Roscoe have.
They actually have really good chemistry.
Yeah, they are hilarious together. But yeah, I really liked that arc. I think it was a great lesson learned for Roscoe to realize that maybe the high life isn't everything. And also, I think it really put in perspective what was important, which made it great when Roscoe finally joined back with the Pride rally, because he realized that the fame and the glamour wasn't everything. And I love the scene where he's running out of the house and just ripping off all of the things that he was wearing that were to do with Stephen Fry's character, and just symbolically just throw it in the bin, and then joins the Pride rally and goes full force. And then I think the episode 5 was also a big one for him. The fact that, firstly, he decided to come along with Jill to see Richie, even though they never got to see. The scene where he finds out that Richie's dead, the crying in that was amazing acting.
Yeah.
And then also...
Because in that scene, you have Lucy, who is quite an interesting figure, because she doesn't really is featured in the show, but there's this little thing of her just, resenting Richie, throughout the show. It's very interesting. But obviously she's there, so she probably turned up, told Roscoe, and, then the scene happens, and it's pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah. And then also you get the bit where, I could be wrong, but I believe it's his father who says, I'm not talking about forgiving you, I'm talking about, can you forgive me?
Yeah, I actually really like that scene. That scene's really good.
And I love how in episode 5, when Richie comes back to the house, they don't actually show us what they say to each other. They leave it up to your imagination what happens. Mm-hmm. And partly because we don't even need to see it happen, we sort of know what's going to happen. In the Nail in his story that we need to see. That's all we need to see to understand the end of his character arc in the show. The fact that he can forgive his family for judging him.
Yeah. And here's the thing, it doesn't seem like the mother, because when we get to the scene at the end with Roscoe and him going back to the house, you can see the look on the mother's face as if she hasn't really moved past it. But then when you go to the father and just look at each other, it's just it's a really, really nice scene, and I really like it.
And I love how, really for both characters, for Roscoe, things are put in perspective about the high life versus doing what he should actually be doing and believing in what he should actually be believing in. And for Roscoe's father, putting in perspective that, the livelihood and of his own son, it should be more important than these beliefs that he's trying to force onto his son. I thought that was really nice to see both characters have a realization, if you know what I mean. And it's believable that they would, because the story takes place over so many years. And to see
it takes place over not 10 years, him going back to his country due to what happened with the daughter and Roscoe, and that naturally, just really good stuff.
Yeah, just really good stuff. And just seeing them build the bridges again, it was all very natural. Yeah, it was all very good. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Roscoe is great. Roscoe's great. I mean, what else can I say? It's just an excellent. I also love Roscoe's chemistry with Colin as well. They are hilarious together because they're so opposite. But I love the little comments that Roscoe has.
Well, about Colin. I like how they make the show that Russell made them share a room, and the fact that they're opposites.
Yeah,
it's really good.
They're great chemistry. But yeah, I think Roscoe's great, hilarious, brilliant character, Just
Yeah, because his whole thing is about being rich. Like what we haven't actually mentioned, the end of episode 1 with Colin, Richie, and Roscoe. That scene is brilliant because it does it in such a natural way, show you what is motivating them and what they want. It's because it's an interview. They're doing interviews. I hate it when, especially a lot of modern stuff in other shows where they blurt out what they want and their motivation in such unnatural ways. Here it makes complete sense, it works, and it's so well shot, acted, just great. The end of episode 1 is really, really good, and I love how they use Richie, Roscoe, and Colin there. It's great stuff.
Of course, yeah, because that reminds me of the character of Carol Carter, who's actually played by Tracy Ann Oberman, who was bloody what's her name in Army of Ghosts? What was the character's name? Oh, Yvonne Hartman. That's the one.
Yvonne Hartman.
She's really good at this as well because she's a casting agent.
The brief time she gets, she's great.
She's like a casting agent. But I love the sinister line of "Don't be one of the boys that has to go home," because it shows the kind of brutality of being reliable, which is a very real thing. And it's basically her saying, it's her subtly saying, you need to stop being gay because you might get AIDS and that will ruin your career. And and it's so sad because technically what she's saying is correct, but morally it's fucked. Because it's the evidence from her is that when you get ill you will lose your job. But by the way she does it is by trying to force Richie out of how he feels, and it all happens because of the disease, and it's so sad. And I think that kind of complexity and that kind of character was really well done by Russell. Okay, let's talk about Colin Morris Jones. We have to talk about him now.
Oh, yeah.
I've been avoiding it because it's such a tragic character, but
he's just such a nice person. He's just such a nice man.
He's an awkward little Welshman, and his whole storyline is foreshadowed in the first episode. And you don't know it's like there's a little subtle hint, but you don't know that it's foreshadowed until he's dead.
Well, here's the thing with Colin. I remember I think it might have been episode 2, where Roscoe asked if he's had sex with anyone. He said yes. And I think that's the only time he ever says that. But
when he says it, we think he's lying, but he's not.
Yeah,
he's not actually lying.
And everyone always has the joke of him being a virgin. Everyone says, "Oh, only you would go to the one place where you can't have sex."
Yeah,
Richie said that.
There's also a very, very subtle hint. It's the scene when Richie is doing the demonstration about AIDS. He kisses a bunch of people and he kisses Colin. And when Colin gets kissed, he's like, it's not, when you see him get kissed by Richie, it's very clear that it's not the first time he's kissed a man. He's happy about it and he's like, oh, that was a bit surprising. But it's not a shock to him. And that small detail is another red herring to add on to the fact that there's information about him that we don't know until the end of his arc. Yeah. But man, Colin is such a tragic character. Like, he's just, like you said, he is such a nice guy. His mother is such a wholesome, lovely woman.
Yeah.
And he's just so cute and adorable and awkward, but they love him for it. They embrace him, and I love in the first episode how he's all like antisocial and doesn't really know how to speak to anyone. Yeah. But then over the course of the episodes he slowly learns how to socialize with everyone else in the group and gets made part of it. And he really comes out of his shell.
Like the scene of him, like the scene in of episode 1 where I think after he gets his room, because obviously he wants to move in. He then goes, I think it's to the kitchen. He says hi to all like the main characters and all that. Then he makes his way down to, I guess, the dance room, and then just slowly gets into it. And that's him coming out of his shell, and it's really, really good. It's just a nice little moment there. Really liked it.
Absolutely,
him enjoying life, enjoying being himself, really.
And he goes on this journey that takes him to a very high place. He has a storyline with the character Henry Coltrane, who is played by Neil Patrick Harris in the first episode.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And that scene in the sort of, I suppose you could call it like the isolation room, the scene where Neil Patrick Harris's character is dying from AIDS, and he says, what, and obviously this is back when this was before they really understood what AIDS was. This is when it was a new thing. And he was talking to Colin, and he's just like, was it that bit of mold in my bench? I just wonder, was it that mold? Mm-hmm. That scene is amazing.
Yeah, I loved it.
I also think...
I'm glad HBO forced Russell to hire a mainline American actor, and it was Neil Patrick Harris, because he does such a great job.
Oh, absolutely. He does an amazing job. Mm. His relationship with his partner is really funny. I love how, again, like talking about opposites, like Neil Patrick Harris's character is so contrasted to Colin's. Like, he's this really confident, experienced businessman. And he's full of, wit and charm, and but this disease just takes him down, and Colin has to watch him die, and it's really fucking sad.
The last little bit I think we get of him, I'm not sure if this was presented as a joke, but when he's like talking about his partner, he's gone. He pauses, and it lets you think for a bit, and it's like, to Portugal. I was like, I thought that was just like, I don't know if they wanted that to be a joke, but I just thought the way they delivered it was pretty funny.
It reminded me a bit of when the doctor in I'm Quite Dead, it's like, I'm gonna die here in a cell in Cardiff.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
the isolation scene is really good.
It gave us like the first death, really, was Neil Patrick Harris's character. But yeah, Colin's arc really got going when he met that character. The other character he met was his name, I believe, is Mr. Hart. I could be wrong on that. I think it's called Mr. Hart.
Yeah.
And he is played by the actor who plays the Spice King in Game of Thrones.
Yeah. When I first watched this, I recognised him from somewhere. I looked it up and I was like, oh, he's in fucking season 3 of Game of Thrones.
Season 2, Karth.
Oh, was it 2? 2? Okay.
It was 2, yeah. He's part of the Karth storyline with Daenerys.
Yeah, okay.
I'm king of spices.
Yeah.
But man, that actor is hilarious. He would make a great Slovene, I think.
You say that. Speaking of, in episode 3, we actually have an actor who played a Slovene.
We did, indeed.
I don't know if you think... Yeah. So there's a nice little link there.
Yes.
Great. When I saw him for this time, I was like, oh shit, it's the guy I like.
Yeah. But obviously, yeah, the Spice King character was in it. Bloody Mr. Hart. And we get that scene where he tells Colin how to have a really good wash. And it's really it's really disgusting, but it's hilarious at the same time.
It's hilarious and disgusting. It's just, oh god.
And I feel it's painful to watch because Colin's
clean and clean again. Clean and clean again.
It reminds me of the
karate.
I
want to take a shirt off.
It reminds me of the Karate Kid with like wax on, wax off, but it was like really creepy.
But a pervert and a paedophile.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus.
And it was really sad to watch because Colin's quite an awkward, self-conscious character, and you could tell he was being, abused but he didn't really know what to do because he's so, nervous. And
he's new and nervous. Yeah.
And it's his boss. And back in the 80s, there was not really any like unions or like strict regulations. Like bosses would abuse their clients all the time, abuse their not clients, their workers. And to be fair, some places they still do. But it was an example of like sexual harassment. And there is that scene, I believe it's episode 2. Yeah, it's episode 2 where they're in that because they end up going to New York, I believe. They go to, America.
Yes, America.
For business. And Colin's living the high life. Like, this little kid from Wales is working in New York. Everything's going well for him. And his mum's so proud. His mum's great. She's adorable. And then you get that one scene where, and also another bit of foreshadowing is Colin doesn't eat very healthy. He eats a lot of takeaways, which certainly doesn't help in terms of his health. You get that one scene where he's sitting in his hotel and the Spice King character comes in drunk and like tries to, because obviously when you're drunk, your senses are less and your prefrontal cortex isn't working properly. He tries to get Colin to sit next to him and he's basically trying to abuse him.
Mm-hmm.
But then he looks down and sees that Colin's been looking at newspapers about AIDS.
And we'll get the main thing is that it's to do with gay people, I think is what, sets him off.
Yeah.
Because he'd been asked by Jill to look all this stuff up because she couldn't get any information.
But also,
so it's all these nice cause and effects.
Also, when I first watched it, I thought he was just looking at it because he's an anxious person. But then it's actually a red herring because when you think about it, he may have been noticing symptoms off screen, or maybe even on screen, but we didn't even notice it.
The way I saw it was that he's actually gay, and he was like, and it gets told by like Stephen Fry's character, like he's not gay, he just like he wants like to, well, as he says, put his face in their shit and then smell the roses. So it's that kind of thing. So I think he doesn't, because he's gay, and they always get tints about, and he doesn't like him. I guess he wants them gone because at the end of his apprenticeship, they don't keep him on. They're like, "Oh, your job's done now. You can go."
Yeah.
Could be that, but it also could be the fact that he might have AIDS. So it's those little things that maybe it could be one and the other, but it doesn't. Yeah. It's a nice.
But also, him looking in that newspaper is foreshadowing for episode 3 when he actually does get AIDS.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also,
there's so many things going on.
And also, I like how it shows how the disease doesn't necessarily hit you all at once. It can take a lot of time to kill you.
Yeah.
Like it can,
because he's had it the entire time of the show, practically.
Yeah, he's had it for years, and sometimes you don't know that you have it until it's too late. That scene where he gets released, and Mr. Hart doesn't even give him any eye contact.
No.
It's so awkward, and it's the lady who's talking to him is very saccharine and mawkish. Like she's basically saying, "It was lovely having you. We appreciate having you." And we've decided that we're not going to keep you on, but you did a brilliant job. And it's so patronizing.
Well done.
It's so patronizing. It's like, here, have a participation.
You can go home.
Here,
you don't have to be here anymore.
Have a participation award, you little chum. I fucking hate that woman.
Yeah, just the way she delivers it is so good.
And then Colin is just like, his eyes are twitching. He's like,
he's begging to say.
Yeah. And then I love when, after he's accepted that he's actually going to have to leave, he walks up to Mr. Hart and just says thank you in the most like fuck you way he can. It's the most backhanded thank you he could have possibly said. And it's so sad that this lovely boy got fired for his sexuality. Like, what a tragedy. And then you get episode 3. He gets a new job at that shop, and then he starts having seizures, that's horrifying in itself. I love the cuteness of like he thinks he's getting a promotion, but it's actually his boss is using him, wants him to open early, so he doesn't have to. And then he has the seizures, and then that's when his mum becomes part of the plot, and then it's revealed that it's not just epilepsy, it's AIDS. And then he slowly, over episode 3, just deteriorates in hospital.
Yep.
And again, like, it's this lovely, innocent boy hugging his mother, saying, "I don't want to die. Can it go away?" Oh, and there's that whole subplot where he gets locked away in the isolation room that Neil Patrick Harris's character did, and they had to call in, like, ruthless lawyers to get him out. That was great.
Yeah.
I
they did like symmetry of Neil Patrick Harris's character, and then him, they end up in the same situation, and it's it just sucks.
I loved the character, like the main lawyer character, the woman that was basically just going up to these people that owned the hospitals and told them, actually, no, such and such. Especially coming off the scene where like they were telling Colin's mother about how he's never going to get out, and she's like, "Well, what do you mean he's never going to get out? What I don't understand." And she's so naive, and it's so sad to watch her not understand what's happening to her own son. And they're like, "Well, he's got AIDS," and like she's like, "Well, what does that mean?" Well, it means he's going to die. It's like, well, you can't make him better. Well, no. And it's like, well, is he even going to get out? No, he's not. And she's like, well, what do you mean he's not going to get out? It's like, well, that's just how it is. It's just, it's so, it's so sad to see these innocent people that just don't know better get abused by the system. The fact that they need these strong lawyers to come in and actually can talk for them and convince them that they're wrong and that the powers that be are breaking the rules. It's really, really sad. And then, of course, Colin gets moved to a proper hospital bed, but, like, by then it's too late. Like, he's on his last legs, and the direction in his death scene where his eyes are darting around and he's remembering when he got AIDS the first night when he went to that house. That is a brutal scene, but it's one of the best scenes in It's a Sin. It's just, oh man, it got me. It really got me. That Colin death scene is like the equivalent of like when, Daniel Barton died in Years and Years.
Yeah, I would say that that's just equivalent.
Except I guess the difference is that rather than it being a twist, it's like built up to. But yeah, it still has the same impact. And I think that we were led to believe that maybe Richie would survive because we already saw Colin die. But then when it hits that Richie is also dead, it's like a double whammy. Man, what a sad story for Colin. What a sad story. And again, like Russell T Davies just crafts these relatable people, these brilliant, relatable characters that you just... like. I can't see how anyone couldn't just love Colin. Like, he's such a lovable person.
Yeah, pretty much. Great person.
Yeah. There's also this one quite disgusting but quite funny scene when he starts going doddery. Like, oh my god, the explanation of what happens to you when you get AIDS, like how you age faster and how like you start talking like
pretty much senile.
You become senile, and there's that really quite disturbing scene where he starts telling Richie exactly what he thinks and like what he would do. And it's really grotesque, and it starts out quite funny, but it actually becomes like really sad. Yeah. And there's that bit where the hospital lady comes in and she says, right, show's over, everyone. And it kind of shows you, it's like, you may think that this shit is funny at first, but when you realize that these people aren't in control and they don't even know what they're saying, it's actually really sad. And it just, I think it gets people thinking, like, when they hear the, really old, maybe grandparents, for example, that are going through, these sort of senile phases, say things like this that are really unfiltered. It may sound funny to them, but when you have to stay with them for an extended period of time, and it sort of sinks in. I think it sort of really sinks in, like, how sad it is that they don't even have control of understanding the implications of what they're saying, and it's just really awkward and sad, and it's just, man. I think one thing we haven't really covered that this show does brilliantly is showing all the different things that AIDS does to you. It's not just the fact that your immune system gets shut off, but it makes other illnesses much worse.
Yeah, it pretty much ruins you. And I think,
like, it's
if you look at both Colin and Richie, they're just pretty much in a puddle, pretty much.
Like, it's basically a fast track to all other diseases, really. And it's terrible. Like, AIDS is literally one of the worst things you could possibly get. And it's I think what makes it so heartbreaking is that it's transmitted through love. Like, two people that love each other can kill each other. And I love the points that they make about in the story about like, well, if this was straight people doing it, then they would have already fixed it by now. But because it's not, they don't give a shit. Like the government doesn't care because it's only a marginalized group. Which again, it just Russell T Davies never leaves a fucking stone unturned, does he? He literally covers every single possible corner of a storytelling that he can. Unbelievable that man is.
Very much. Just what a genius.
What a genius, yeah. Colin, brilliant character. Another excellent character. And an excellent performance too. I loved like the cute little Welsh accent as well, and like the interactions with his mum too. Colin has a sense of humor as well. Sometimes the joke is on him, but he has a little sense of humor of his own, and I found it really endearing. Right, Jill Baxter, you have a go.
Jill is such an interesting character. She's just like, she's kind of, because what she is, she's like in the first episode, sort of this link for Richie, and like. And in some ways, the parents in some ways are right in terms of her helping Richie open up, but it's not that she tainted him as they would say. She let him open up and be himself, and let him be himself, and I think Richie and Jill's friendship is like, it's one of my favorite things from the show because they both want the same thing, and their interactions, their chemistry, they have like a duet thing as well, which is great, and it's really fun to watch. But yeah, I really like Jill. I think she's a really good character, and how she constantly is trying to take care of people, keeping them safe. And
I really like her storyline with Gloria in episode 2.
Oh yeah, that whole because then it sets, because what Jill is, it sets up her for a scene that I think is one of my favourites in the show, right at the end. She's such a caring person. She cares about a friend, cares about anybody who is in this situation who has AIDS. It's just...
But she's also...
She does all she can.
But she's also not meek either. She says it exactly like it is. She's brutally honest, and that's what they need.
Yeah, like the scene with her and Richie, like... Because Richie, at this point, still doesn't believe it and thinks it's some sort... It's like... the news or whatever, like, tainting with the whole AIDS thing because he doesn't believe it. But the conversation that Jill has with him, like, say you were ill and you fucked him and then he fucks him, you know? Just that whole scene was really, really well done. Also, and the whole thing with Jill.
Also, she's also a very good judge of character because if you remember, she's the one that initially tries to hook Richie up with Ash. And in the end, they end up being together by the end of the story.
Because she knows that they would, just from the very little, she like saw Richie at first, like she could pick up that Ash would like be quite perfect for him, you know. Yeah, but one of my favourites, it all builds up because Jill is such a caring person who tries her best to help everybody she can. You have that scene at the end where she goes into the room with the man who's called Marcus, and she just sits with him, and holds his hand, and that was one of my favourite scenes in the show because this whole show, these characters get to, even when they are ill, get to be with their friends and family. They get to spend time with the people they love and all around them. But then there's people who don't. There's people who are alone, like Marcus, who don't have anybody to take care of them or to look after them or watch over them. And that's the reality, that not everybody's going to be as lucky as these people are. And having that scene at the end is very touching. It's one of my favourite scenes in the show because it's so simple, yet it says so much. And it's so well done, and I absolutely love it. I think that's when I broke down. I think that scene with Jill going to just sit with Marcus is when I think I started to break down at the end of the show. It's just so good.
Yeah, she's amazing. I love how she's the glue that holds it all together, really. She's such a great sort of centerpiece for the friend group. And then,
Mm-hmm.
and she's always the one that has to get the phone call when someone's died.
Yeah.
And I think
She's always the one,
also
yeah.
we commented on how this actress was amazing in Years and Years, but I think she gets much more of a center stage here.
Yeah.
And
Because with Years and Years, there's a lot more characters, a lot more main characters.
yeah,
And she's like,
and it's also
she's a part of the plot and like how the
it's
plot
also a longer
resolves,
show
but
too.
Here,
Years and Years is a longer
Yeah.
show, like hour-long episodes and 6 of them, rather than 45 minutes and 5. But I love her acting. She's a rising star. Like, she is gonna be big, I think, because she is so good.
yeah,
But I love the reaction
Really good.
she gets when she hears someone's died over the phone, and she's like, okay, and then tries to hold it together, but then eventually just crumbles, like with it. And it's such a natural reaction, because a lot of the time in like storytelling, you get these weird sudden reactions that are too good to be true. Whereas I found all of the reactions from her as an actor were so natural, and they've built over the course of a scene as they would in real life. But specifically talking about her storyline in episode 2 with Gloria, I love how she was caring enough to look after him because he had AIDS, and she was, cooking and cleaning for him, and she had that really pedantic bit where he came into the house and drank that coffee, and she
Oh god, that scene. Oh god, that's so good.
and she was just stressing out and couldn't even sleep because she knew that cup was there, and that she tried cleaning it, and then she put it in the bin, took it out, smashed it, put it in the bin so no one would get it, put it away and all that.
And that's the thing, because that mug is the mug that they mentioned it in episode 1, because I think it's Richie's mum gives it to Richie, and and that, I think they named the place after that mug, and to have it be smashed as well, I think is very nice little subtlety.
It's symbolic, actually. It's quite symbolic. And then, of course, the scene where because she brings some meals, because she's amazing. And then the scene where she opens the door and Gloria's parents are there.
Well, it's his dad and sister.
Oh, sorry, yeah, his dad and sister, I should say, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just
that scene.
The whole
is,
scene is
that
just,
scene.
ooh.
That scene hurt to watch. That was brutal.
Thank you for fucking nothing.
And also, it's like,
Yeah, it's just
it's a horrible father moment. Like, it's him being really aggressive. But like with Valerie in episode 5, you understand why he's so upset, because his fucking son's gonna die.
Yeah.
His son is going to die. And then
And then at the end of the episode,
and like because obviously, like, it's like, oh my god, he's treating Jill terribly, but you understand why. And then you see the symbolicness when you see his pictures being burned, because it's sort of funeral of some kind. But the symbolicness of burning all of Gloria's stuff, and then you just see his father breaking down because his son's dead. It's just it's so heartbreaking. Like, that's just it's truly, truly sad. And I think this is something that Russell T Davies does a lot. He does really well. Some people don't notice it for some reason. I don't know why. But he has this way of having people be horrible to each other that is completely justified. Do you understand what I mean when I say that? Like, where people will do things that appear on the surface really bad, but when you look at it from their point of view, you understand why they do it. You understand how they got to that point. And that, for me, I think is like a pinnacle of character drama.
Yeah. It's about, like, it doesn't matter if you specifically, as a person, if you're whatever your morals are, it's not about what you think is right or wrong. It's about if it makes sense for the character to think what they think and do what they do.
And also,
that's what the writing about a character is all about.
And what this part of this character's decision and what them doing in this scene, how does that contribute to the story? And almost, I would say 99% of the time when Russell does this, it contributes to create a brilliant story that's complex, that has interesting characters that do very interesting things. They're not perfect people. They're not like moral crusaders. They are all just people that have flaws, that have tenderness, that snap when things go wrong, just like real people. And that's why I think I can sink my teeth into Russell's character so much when he does drama, is that he makes them feel real, just like all of us. And I think the reason why Russell's writing makes us cry quite a lot and make us quite emotional is because it brings like this sort of a lot of feelings that you keep hidden, especially when you're in public, about people and just like the inner emotions. It brings a lot of that out on screen in raw energy, and I think that's probably why we find
it's
ourselves
characters that you care about, and it's also characters that you understand. You understand their hardships, you understand their highs and their lows, and who they are as people.
But also, I think it's like in a lot of TV, you only see the presentable side of people. In a sense, you only see the kind of thing that you would see someone do in the middle of public. But what Russell T Davies does is he brings that sort of, you see everything. You see their home life. You see them in their private space. You see them with their private feelings. I think that's what makes Russell's writing so good, is that it's so personal. And you see them, you see characters in spaces where you wouldn't see them in public. And I think that's why it's so compelling, is because us can relate to that at home. You know, in our own lives, in our own closed off private lives, we have similar situations like this that Russell's like understands so well. And I think that's why it touches such a soft spot, because it's something that we don't usually show in public. But yeah, Jill Baxter is a fucking brilliant character, and her performance was so good. So good. I loved in episode 5 when Valerie was storming through the hospital, Jill just like tried to keep it level-headed.
Yeah, try to keep it calm, follow her around, you know, just to explain. Yeah, and she like she says in that scene, she's like always told Richie to tell the mum and dad, like, constantly, and she did. It was multiple times, gave him multiple opportunities to do so, but it was to do with that shame where he just couldn't do it, because that's him as a person, due to his parents and due to the mum. Yeah, it's all good stuff, and Jill was a great character.
Yeah, she's almost like you know the character that Jessica Hines played in Years and Years, like the one that got radiated. She's almost a bit like in terms of position in the plot. The thing is, the difference is that Jessica Hines' character in Years and Years actually resolved the plot, whereas with Jill, she didn't stop Richie from dying, but she
just experienced it.
She put a pin in the actual conflict.
Yeah,
like she actually nailed down exactly what the themes were, and when I say themes, I mean really well written themes. She put that final nail on. This is what this story is about, and it was done in such a good way. Man, I love good stuff. I love good writing.
Writing's good. When writing's good, it's real good.
Yeah. Let's talk about Ash. I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. I don't want to mess it up, but let's talk about Ash.
Ash is interesting because I think out of the 5, he doesn't get as much screen time, doesn't get as much development, but I think the scenes he has with Richie are good, and I think that I enjoy their chemistry and the little interactions they have. The one scene in particular I think is his standout scene is the scene where he's been told by, I guess, the person who works at the library to check for anything that would be inappropriate for kids. And that whole scene is like him, what he wishes he said, all the stuff he wishes he said, and then you get the I think, I can't remember who said, but they asked like, what did you really say? And he's like, there's some stuff in this book. It's just great. That whole scene is because it's built up as like, yes, he's taking a stand, but then you get the really funny twist, which is like, there's some stuff in here. I've got to do my job.
I mean, you can see why him and Richie are such a perfect pairing, though, because what he actually wanted to say is very similar to the scene when Richie was talking about why you shouldn't worry about AIDS.
Yeah.
In terms of delivery. I really like the actor who plays Ash. I think he does a really good job. I think a really good scene with Ash is the one where after all this time he's finally come back around to Richie again, but by the time it's happened, Richie has AIDS.
Yeah.
And Richie says, no, he rejects his offer because he doesn't want to kill him, even though his deepest desires is to embrace, affection and love for this person that he has been, he fancied in the first episode.
Yeah.
But his deepest desire is to embrace that and actually have like a serious bond with Ash. But he can't because he has AIDS. He can't do it because he has AIDS. And if he does, he will kill him. And that is so sad. I thought that was another scene that really stood out to me when I saw it. And the fact that Ash doesn't even know why he's saying no until later on is also heartbreaking as well. For Ash, it's really heartbreaking because he, even though they have their ups and downs, and there's a lot of funny stuff in the first episode about, like, he's just like, mate, you need to clean your ass.
Yeah, that's funny.
And there's bickering because Richie comes from, like, a place of privilege, so he doesn't really understand, all the different...
Well, he's not from the UK. He's Isle of Wight, so he's quite outside of that. Because, like he mentions, there's only one family of heritage there, And obviously he makes the comment of like his dad, who's like doesn't say anything like offensive, but he's like, "Oh, there they are, just there, just living, all that kind of stuff."
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, that whole scene of him just like kind of being very awkward because he doesn't know how to talk to people yet because he's still quite new, and it's just like he's like, "Are you Hindus or Muslims or whatever else he says?" It's funny, but it's like, oh man. That's real awkward.
Dude, just shut your fucking mouth. You're being really bad. That's what it feels like, When you're watching him say that shit, it's like, oh, Richie, stop. But it's quite funny, isn't it? And then Ash is just like, oh, for fuck's sake, another white boy. But yeah, they have that rocky start, but then obviously it's, once you get past all the like the niggly bullshit, like they are sort of, meant to be. And I think that's what Jill sees. She sees the substance under the surface is what...
Yeah.
Despite the fact that they bicker at first, she sees that at the core they would be a really good match. And then Ash, by the time he's actually, in love with Richie by the end, loses him. And that's heartbreaking. And really sad. Yeah, I think, like you said, he's not as developed as the others, but I think the screen time that he does get is really good. And like you said, the library scene is the best scene with him.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's like, as weak characters go in a Russell story, like, he's still, like, stronger than a lot of characters I see.
He's still pretty good. He's still a pretty good character.
Like, if you threw Ash in, like, another TV show that's coming out now, he would probably be one of the best characters.
He'd be one of the stronger characters,
yeah,
sure.
It's just like sometimes there's just not enough room for everyone. But
originally, I think Russell, I saw on the trivia on IMDb originally, they did want this to be like a longer season, but I can't remember, it was either Channel 4, which was the broadcaster in the UK, or HBO wanted to, which was the one in America, they wanted it shortened to just like 5. I can't remember, but this was originally going to be longer, and I think it would probably benefit from being longer. I think maybe an episode or two longer.
Yeah, I was thinking that because
it's
this is much shorter than Years and Years, and if it was longer, I think maybe Ash may have gotten a bit more focus.
And I think there was originally meant to be a storyline of another character moving in. I think I saw that on the trivia. So there was more. I think Russell wanted to do more, but I think for a shorter show than he originally intended, he did a really good job at not making it feel too rushed.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely not Russell's fault.
There's always a fear of that.
It's not Russell's fault. It's the studio's fault for wanting it to be shorter, for like cutting off his storytelling, potential. But I think even then, trimming it down, he still did an absolutely phenomenal job. With the 5 episodes he had. We've talked a lot about Valerie Tozer, the mother, but I think we should also talk about Clive Tozer as well, which, funnily enough, the actor for this appeared as Epso in The Ghost Monument.
Yes, and he was acting-wise, was probably one of the better actors in that episode.
Yeah, and
even then, character wasn't great.
Yeah, so Clive Tozer. So a lot of his character is set up for the twist in episode 5, but I think even then, seeing this, like, he's very much what you think you need to be worried about. He's a typical abusive father. At the heart of it, he does love his son, but he's just a fucking boomer. That's the thing. He doesn't understand.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand Richie. And
the scene of I think it was one of the early episodes beginning, where it was the BBC like AIDS thing, like they broadcast something, and Richie says, "My family's watching us, or Dad's watching us." We cut to them. They just changed the channel, and they're just like, "Oh, good." And the mum's just like, "Well, I like him." So they just completely ignore it, because it's not in their minds, and nor do they think they should care.
Yeah, exactly. Like Clive Tozer is one of those typical characters that just doesn't give a shit, and he's ignorant. He doesn't understand the actual implications of what he says and does. He just thinks he can just own the house. Yeah. But obviously, there's red herrings in there that actually his wife is the one that's wearing the pants. And when shit really does hit the fan, you see his sensitive side. But I really like the scene where Richie cooks them dinner, and then he wants to leave, and he says, "Why don't you just fucking sit down, because you're my son, you're gonna sit down here and have dinner with us." And then Richie just tells him to fuck off. It was quite satisfying. But I think I think Clive really is just, it exemplifies the typical, like, just old school dad that doesn't really get it, and is reckless and thinks he owns the place. By the time Richie has AIDS is gonna die, I think Clive really realizes, a lot of the shit that he did wrong. It's not said. He doesn't say it on screen. He doesn't really confess it, but just purely from like the actor's emotions, like the reaction to the event, you can see at least for me, I can see there's a lot of regret. You can see a lot of regret from him, and also a lot of fear because his wife goes ballistic on him. But I thought Clive was a really solid character. Really, obviously a really nasty character at points, but a very solid one, and he aided the plot twist in episode 5 a lot, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I think quite a few people can probably relate to Richie in these scenes as well, because there's quite a few people out there that have fathers that are a lot like Clive Tozer.
I mentioned Lucy like a bit because what she does is like she's just very little, but every time like, for example, Richie comes home, I think it's the same episode we talked about with the dinner, and she just like, oh, it's all going to be about Richie now, because it's like she gets really frustrated. So it's not entirely sure what I think Russell was trying to say, I guess, but I don't know. I wasn't that bothered by it, but yeah. Other than that, I'm trying to think.
I think maybe, like you said, like if Years and Years had been an episode longer, Lucy may have played a bigger role.
Yeah, and that's probably that's why I think it probably should be an episode or two longer. I think that in terms of time, I think it does it time well. But if I think this is a show you can extend to an episode or two. Yeah. Especially because it takes over 10 years, sorry.
6-part supremacy.
Yeah.
Think it's Jill's parents. They appear in this, right? Am I correct in saying that Jill's parents are in this?
Yeah, they're in it for an episode or two. I like them. They're like very just accepting of everyone. You know, like I think the dad says like, if I'm deemed a homosexual, I'll be damn proud of it, or something of that nature. I think he says for the riot. Yeah.
There's the hospital lady in episode 5.
Yeah, that the interaction with the mum is pretty funny.
Oh, and there's also the policemen as well. The policemen, I should say. The ones that take them off the road.
Yeah, you get all the people in the street. Like you get like taxi drivers and the guy on the bike. Like he was so excited. The way he was just like shaking his bike. He was so excited that people getting arrested. And then you got like the two women that were there that were cheering them all on as well.
Yeah, this handled police brutality much better than bloody Revolution of the Daleks, didn't it? Speaking of Daleks,
oh yeah, actually, I was about to say, we have a Doctor Who thing in this, which is really fun.
Yeah, so Russell T Davies remade a scene from Resurrection of the Daleks and called it Regression of the Daleks. And he does like a really tongue-in-cheek version of it where Richie's like, we have to blast whatever's going through that door, otherwise it's the end of the world.
We must protect the crystal. If we don't, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's just like,
yeah. It's gonna be funny because you haven't seen Resurrection of the Daleks, and when you watch that story, you're gonna recognize that scene.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that was
but that was fun. Just a nice little moment there.
It's just like, I love how he puts little nods. Like in Years and Years, you had Vivian Rook in there.
But then that's great because it shows where Richie is in his career, and obviously then goes into like the whole he's not looking well, you know. So with that, it's a nice little like fan thing for us who have watched Doctor Who and for him, but it does service the plot. It does show you where he is in his career and in terms of his health. So it's great.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, because they get that
Brilliant
scene where
stuff.
they do his makeup and they says your skin's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Your skin doesn't look right, and it's like, oh fuck, because we've already been foreshadowed by seeing other people with AIDS have skin issues. Oh man, oh, it's so good, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously it's written by Russell T Davies. He's an absolute genius. He's one of the best writers I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I love him. I love that man. He's so good. He barely ever makes mistakes. Like, I just... He's almost impossible.
Yeah, I just don't know how he does it all the
like,
time.
almost all of his writing is just watertight, brilliant TV. And he just... Everything comes straight from the heart. It's just... so good. And he never sells out either. He never sells out. He never takes the cheap road. He never phones it in. He never does a bit of storytelling for, like, you know, for a company to benefit from. Obviously, they put restrictions on him, and they give him demands like, you know, hire an American actor, only have 5 episodes, blah blah blah. But the way he tells stories is never in the benefit of the person he's working for. It's always the story that he wants to tell. And pretty much everything he writes is just so chock full of substance, and there's reason for it. There's a story to tell, and just he's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. His dialogue, his characters, pacing, everything. Like that, we talked about it in Years and Years. Like, his dialogue is just so good all the time.
Yeah.
It's always great. Always feels natural, but it's funny, it's charming, it's witty. It's just, oh man, just a genius.
Brilliant.
He's a genius. And I think, honestly, I will watch anything he writes, like, that comes out, because I trust him.
Most likely, yeah.
I have so much trust in his writing that I need, everything he writes is must see. And I think I might even consider going back and watching some of the other serials he's done before as well.
Yeah,
because I
most
think,
likely.
Because I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see them. Because he hardly ever puts a foot wrong. He's amazing. The direction, all 5 episodes were done by a man called Peter. I don't know how he says his last name, but it's Hoar. It's like Hoar.
Peter Hoare.
Peter Hoare.
Peter Hoare.
Fun fact: he directed the Doctor Who episode "A Good Man Goes to War."
Yeah, I was just looking at his IMDb and I saw that he's also directed a lot of the Marvel Netflix shows, like Daredevil and Iron Fist. He did like Defenders, Runaways, Cloak and Dagger. He's done some big stuff.
I thought he was absolutely phenomenal.
I thought it was great. I thought the direction was really good.
There was so much storytelling purpose to his shots, like the close-ups and the focus on certain things, certain characters, certain elements of the story. And I think his standout bit of direction is episode 5. the shots, especially in hospital.
Yeah,
the
I agree.
Direction in the
agree.
hospital scene in episode 5 is just awesome.
Yeah,
And
brilliant stuff. Direction was spot on.
And like all the camera work was so dynamic, and there was so many long shots, especially in the house. Like they would pan through the house and do lots of long shots and give you heaps of great point of view shots, and it was never dull. Like the camera work was never stale. It was always dynamic. Despite the fact that this is a grounded drama, it was always vibrant. You know what I mean? It was always vibrant and very, very dynamic, and there was always a purpose, and there was always things to look at and see, and the way that he used the camera to. He also used deception as well. The fact that he would choose not to show you certain things until you needed to see them. And then the pin would drop. I know this was... He didn't do Years and Years, but there was also a bit of this in Years and Years as well. Like, when you see Stephen Lyons in that room and then Elaine pops into shot, and it basically tells you everything that's happening in that scene just by seeing her there. It's a bit like that. Like, there was so many shots in It's a Sin where the purpose of the scene was to direct you around a room and then show you certain things you need to see. Oh, and also, might I mention, during the montage in episode 1 where they played that classical music and Richie's shagging lots of people, I love the bit where he's walking through the club and like each time he kisses a different man, it plays a different string note. That was so funny. But I loved how the camera work like mirrored the very flamboyant movements of the character as well. Like it was very bouncy, but it was never jarring, and it was never shaky. Just all round incredible direction. Do you have anything to add?
No, it's just the direction was brilliant from start to finish. Every episode had great direction. Absolutely loved it. Like we mentioned with the
not a single dull moment. Not a single boring moment.
I don't think there was. I really don't think there was. I think everything was very, very intentional. And I think it does a really good job at really like getting the sense of like the depressing real feel of the effects of everything. Yeah, that in particular was pretty great.
Yeah, like when we did the series 1 marathon on your channel, and we were watching Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways, and you kept on saying like every time it cut, you're like, every scene is great, just back to back, every scene is great. I got to a point in It's a Sin where I got that, like I was just like, every scene back to back is just great.
Brilliant stuff.
Amazing.
And
of course, how could we forget the music by Murray Gold?
So good. Why isn't it released? Come on.
We need the Series 10 soundtrack, we need the Years and Years soundtrack, and we need the It's a Sin soundtrack.
Yeah. Like I've got Richie's theme playing, which is, I guess there's like different versions of it, but this version is like the ending of the show. Like everybody just like feeling the effects of his passing. It's so good. Just the strung on the guitar, the choir in the background. It's just really good stuff.
It was just again just signature Murray Gold brilliant score.
Yeah.
Like for some reason, Murray Gold and Russell T Davies just go together so well.
Yeah, they really do.
Like Murray Gold did a really good job with Stephen Moffat's Doctor Who as well, but I just think him and Russell just click. Like they just have this chemistry. His writing and his score is just, it's magic. It's absolute magic.
It really is.
And I like how Russell T Davies just insists on having certain people he's worked with before because he knows that it will work. Like I know that Phil Collinson also produced this series as well, and he was part of his team. And I like how Russell's got to the point in his career where he's so successful that he's just like, I want that person to work on my show. And Murray Gold's score on It's a Sin is fucking phenomenal. As it always is with Murray Gold, usually. His scores are just Amazing. Like, and also I also found with this score, it never like interrupted the story.
No,
It was
never
always
did,
it was
yeah.
always in the background as it should be, but it just complemented the story always. I specifically remember it being really good in the scene where Colin passed away, like transitioning between that and the flashbacks. It really aided the intensity, and then also sometimes even the lack of music was brilliantly intentional, like the bit where Jill finds out that Richie's dead and all the music just cuts dead. Do you want to move on to some trivia?
Yes.
Okay, so the character of Jill is based on an actress, Jill Nalder, a long-term friend of writer Russell T Davies. She plays Jill's mother in the series and genuinely lived in a Hampstead flat share christened in the Pink Palace. A theatrical "la" was a common call-out amongst the friends. Oh my god, that's a reference.
Yeah, it's a reference. Yeah.
I love that. There's a subtle...
It's just great. It's just great stuff.
It's just amazing. There's a subtle tribute to the actor Ian Charleson, who starred as Eric Liddell in The Chariots of Fire. Charleson died of AIDS in 1990 at the age of 40. Theatre poster in the West End of Guys and Dolls, in which Charleston starred in as Sky Masterton and seeing hanging on a wall of the flat. That's lovely. In early February 2021, Channel 4 announced that their on-demand service, always available in the UK and Ireland, all four shared that It's a Sin had been viewed over 6.5 million times as broken records, including becoming their biggest ever instant box set, their biggest ever drama launch, becoming their most binged new series ever, and their third biggest series ever. This was only in the first 5 weeks since episode 1 premiered in the UK and Ireland on Channel 4 and All 4.
Did very well.
I think Russell T Davies is just slowly making his name as, like, you know, trying to climb that podium of, like, best TV writer in the world at the moment, because he's conquering the kingdoms. Like, he's working with American networks at this point.
Yeah. Because I think, I don't know if Years was, but obviously, like we've mentioned, this is on HBO, and this, like...
Years and Years was also
got
HBO,
pretty big.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I think as time goes on, he's, like, just making these shows, and they're getting incredibly popular because of the reputation he has, and they're just getting better and better. And they're just, like, getting bigger and bigger, which thank God he is, because he's a fantastic writer.
And the thing is that unlike other writers, he answers these really relevant, like, things that people are thinking about, but he does it in the absolute best way. There's no pandering, there's no surface level bullshit. It's all, like, genuine from the heart storytelling that people can actually relate to, and that's why it's so good. There's no corporate, like, shilling and, you know, stunt casting and, you know, pandering to an audience just to get brownie points. Like, there is a man here who has a story to tell about something he genuinely believes in. And that's where the best storytelling usually comes from, is when you actually have substance to why you're doing something. The series' original title was Boys, but it was changed to avoid the confusion with The Boys 2019. I suppose that's the... I've heard about The Boys. Isn't that like the sort of like of real-life people with superheroes?
Yeah. It certainly is. It's certainly that show. I like it, but season 2 is pretty shit. I think Mauler's doing a whole... I think it's like 8-hour video on it, which is going to be fucking mental.
Oh, dear.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, though.
Lydia West stars as Bethany in a show called Years and Years, which is the one who plays Jill Baxter. Coincidentally,
it's a nice
Ollie Alexander is a lead singer of a band called Years and Years.
Yeah, I read about that.
Character named Richie Tozer is named after the actor Russell Tovey. According to creator Russell T Davies, in an interview, he said he wanted the name Richie after Russell Tovey. Sorry, Richie after a successful gay actor, and the name like Tozer is sort of similar to Tovey. This is a tribute to Dursley McLinden, who played Sergeant Mike Smith in Remembrance of the Daleks, who died of AIDS in 1995 at the age of 30. Davies had met the actor at a birthday party for Jill Nalder. Wow. Oh, apparently the series was originally going to be 8 episodes.
I think that would have been good if it was 8 episodes.
Wow.
I think a lot of characters would have been allowed to breathe.
Channel 4 suggested an unpalatable 4 editions, with the team settling on 5. The fuller, abandoned plots would have seen another flatmate move into the Pink Palace. A later storyline saw Jill in her mid-50s and a sexual mental health worker, still in passion for singing. A health lecture was... Oh, also, that reminds me, there's all those scenes of her singing, and it has the guillotine, which is, like, symbolic for all the people dying at the time.
Yep. Yep, that's good stuff.
Yep. A health lecture was to have her return to the Isle of Wight for the first time since Richie's death. This was the reasoning behind having a much younger sister for the older Jill to talk with. His mother, Valerie, would then be in a care home and disclose to Jill a dark history of sexual abuse in the Tozer family. Additionally, Roscoe was to be seen with Jill having contracted HIV in middle age. Interesting. Right. Okay. Conclusion and rating out of 10 for It's a Sin.
It's a Sin is really good. It's a really good show about characters. It's about, like, love and shame and just everything in between. All the characters are really well developed. Richie, Roscoe, and Colin in particular, and Jill, just phenomenal. I think each of them with their own story and what they want and their motivations, and sort of getting to their highs, but then right after the lows, and it's so naturally built up to, is brilliant. All the other side characters are really good. Such great direction, brilliant acting from start to finish. Russell's done it again. He's made another brilliant show. In terms of comparing Years and Years to It's a Sin, I would probably say I prefer it Years and Years for the fact that I think what it did, I think it did everything it could. I think it naturally took all the time it needed and paid it off beautifully. With It's a Sin, I think if, like we've mentioned, if it extended an episode or two, like I think Russell clearly originally wanted, it would allow characters like Ash and probably Lucy to have more to do to make it more impactful for them as well. Because I think as Ash is a really good character, but compared to the other 4, he is absolutely by a little bit quite not as developed. But he's still really good, really strong. But there's definitely more you could have done with him, for sure. But yeah, I think the show is great and really well done. So I'm just going to give it a 9 out of 10. I think it's a brilliant show from start to finish. Great music, great direction, acting, writing, just brilliant. He's done it again, like we said. Love this show. Brilliant. Mm-hmm. It's a Sin is a really good show, and you should all watch it.
Yeah, It's a Sin is amazing, telling a story about the 1980s AIDS crisis that some people know some about, but showing the brutal, honest, and guttural truth behind it. All of the details, all of the illnesses that come with it, all of the relationships that are built, and the love and the care and the heartbreak that comes with this virus existing, this disease that exists that separates people from their ambitions, their careers, their love interests, their lives taken away, their lives ruined by a disease and by a system not only of parents but also of a government that didn't do anything about it because it mostly affected a marginalized group. It is so good. It is brilliant storytelling from start to finish. The characters are great, the dialogue's great, the direction's great, the music's great, the plot is so good. And it's fucking hilarious, it's sad, it's dark, it's brilliant, it's flamboyant, it's funny, and it's one of the best representations I've ever seen in a storytelling about homosexual people, which I find a lot of the time I see, especially in Hollywood, companies and corporations will use sexuality as a token to try and invest a casual audience in something because it's saying, we have representation, therefore we have the good message.
Brownie points.
For brownie points and clout. But it doesn't actually do what you're meant to do by showing point of view of what it's like to live a life as a person with this sexuality. And this is what Russell T Davies does. It's phenomenal. It is head and shoulders above the rest of a lot of these kinds of stories. And it is amazing. The only thing holding it back is I just wish it was a bit longer, because I want more of the good stuff. I want Russell's creative vision to fully expand to what he really wants it to be, for the creator's vision to be lived out, just like how Last of the Time Lords is a better episode when you extend it to an hour. I think It's a Sin would be better if you extended it to its natural creator's vision length, where there's more development for the side characters, where there's extra plot, more subtext to dive into, more themes, more laughs, more life, just more It's a Sin. I think that's the only thing holding it back, and that's not Russell's fault, that's HBO's fault, but even then, within the parameters that he had of 5 episodes, he still pulled off a fucking phenomenal story. And like you, I do think Years and Years is better. I gave Years and Years a 10, so I'm going to give this a 9.5. Absolutely brilliant. As expected, let's be honest.
Yeah. Not that shocking, but
And
Jesus Christ, he pulls out the bag.
And I think it's really telling that a show that Russell T Davies did like 20 years ago, Queer as Folk, maybe even longer than 20 years ago, maybe like 25 years ago, the fact that they are commissioning him to bring it back is really a sign of him coming full circle in his career. The fact that people and the reaction to these serials that he's been doing has been so positive that he is allowed to bring back a show that he loved doing when he was much younger, I think is really telling, and I can't wait to watch it. In fact, I may even have to watch
I hope it's good.
I may even have to watch the original series to see what it's all about before I watch the reboot, because I think I feel like I need to get in with this thing. And obviously I may even check out other things he's done, like The Second Coming and Casanova and all those ones that he named after food, like cucumber and tofu.
A Very English Scandal is one he's done.
Oh yes, of course, Very English Scandal. And also Torchwood Children of Earth. I need to see that, because I hear that's one of the best things he's done as well. And also the episode of Sarah Jane he did with Matt Smith. I want to see that too.
Yes. I've seen it. It's really good.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what the 11th Doctor is like, written by Russell T Davies. But yeah, I love this man. I love his writing. He's a fucking genius. He's probably my favorite writer of the modern era. Possibly. It's hard to say. At least TV-wise, yes. Maybe not. Maybe novels, maybe there's a slight difference. Maybe for films there's a slight difference. But if we're talking modern TV, I don't think there's anyone that tops him for me. Almost everything I watch that this man writes, I'm blown away. He's incredible. And he has pulled off another miracle, another brilliant series. Rough. Well, that was great. Next time, question mark. Would you all in the comments let us know if you'd like to see us cover more Russell T Davies content? Because I wouldn't object to it. Honestly, I wouldn't.
No.
I'd love to see more of the things that he's written, because he's fucking great.
Just have Russell write everything.
Yeah, just have him write.
Just make more shows.
Yeah.
Really good stuff.
And his Doctor Who, people need to appreciate more.
Yes.
The people on Twitter.
Yes.
Especially Series 2 and Series 3, I think. Especially those ones deserve more love.
Yep. Totally agree.
Man.
He knows how to write.
Oh, fuck yeah, he knows how to write. Like anyone. Right. Okay. Thank you all for joining our review of It's a Sin. We will see you all next time for whatever comes. Thank you and bye-bye.